Ukraine has just exposed something that could completely change the balance of power in the world's oceans. They've revealed the guarded secrets of Russia's most modern nuclear submarine. And these secrets are unbelievable, and I'm going to tell you exactly what they are throughout this video. We're talking about a submarine that carries enough firepower to alter the fate of entire nations. If this information is true, the Russian Navy's invisible ghost of the oceans has lost its greatest weapon: secrecy. But this is only the tip of the iceberg of a naval revolution happening right under our noses. How is a country with no navy defeating the world's second largest navy? And what does this mean for the future of global rivalry? August 2025, Ukrainian military intelligence carried out one of the boldest espionage operations of the modern era. They got their hands on a complete set of classified internal documents from the Ka-555 Nyaz Pozharsky, Russia's newest Boryai-class nuclear submarine. Imagine having access to the most protected secrets of a nuclear superpower. That's exactly what happened. These files weren't just dry bureaucratic reports. They contained information that's normally locked away in reinforced vaults. Full identities of the crew, with their specialties and physical limitations, detailed operational manuals, precise patrol route maps, technical diagrams of weapon and survival systems, reports on defects and vulnerabilities, and even direct combat orders. The reaction was immediate. Within hours, naval analysts around the world began tearing apart every line of these documents. Some experts called it the biggest naval security leak of the decade, while others urged caution in verifying authenticity. But one thing is undeniable. If these documents are legitimate, Russia will have to completely rethink its Arctic naval strategy. To grasp the magnitude of this leak, we first need to meet the star of the story. The Nyaz Pozharsky is a Boryai-class submarine built to replace the aging Typhoon and Kalmar subs in the Russian fleet. This isn't just any vessel. It's literally one of the most sophisticated and lethal machines ever built by humankind. Each sub in this class carries 16 R-30 Bulava ballistic missiles, and each missile can carry multiple independent nuclear warheads. Do the math. And a single Nyaz Pozharsky has enough destructive power to reshape the political geography of entire continents. That's why these submarines form the heart of Russia's so-called nuclear triad, the land, air, and sea-based forces that keep the balance of terror in today's world. What makes the Boryai especially dangerous is its unique combination of stealth and firepower. They operate mainly in the icy waters of the Arctic, where the natural cover of polar ice and vast ocean expanses provide near-perfect camouflage. Russian Navy veterans say that finding one of these subs in the Arctic depths is like searching for a needle in a haystack the size of Europe. When one of these giants loses its cloak of invisibility, the strategic shockwaves ripple far beyond Russian waters. It's not just Moscow that feels it, the entire global geopolitical balance shifts. But to fully understand the story, we need to zoom out and look at the bigger naval picture. Russia has one of the most diverse navies on the planet, from nimble frigates to mid-sized aircraft carriers, modern destroyers, and of course a submarine fleet historically considered among the best in the world. This naval heritage comes from decades of development during the Soviet era, when submarines were the main tool for projecting naval power, even against numerically superior forces. The strategy was always clear: if you can't win on the surface, dominate the depths. In recent years, Russia has commissioned 12 nuclear submarines as part of an ambitious naval modernization program, proof that Moscow sees its submarine force as an absolute strategic priority. In the Arctic specifically, where Russia's presence has been growing exponentially for both economic and geopolitical reasons, this fleet plays a crucial dual role, guarding emerging trade routes and natural resources while keeping a hidden nuclear strike capability under the ice. But here's the problem. That entire strategy fundamentally depends on secrecy. A strategic submarine that's been discovered is a submarine that's been neutralized. While Russia builds steel monsters for the oceans, Ukraine has taken a completely different and surprisingly effective approach. Instead of trying to compete with billion-dollar nuclear subs, they bet on something much smaller, cheaper, but infinitely more innovative: naval drones. The Magura V-5, just 5.5 meters long, has already sunk multiple Russian vessels, including the missile corvette Ivanovets on January 31, 2024, and the landing ship Caesar Kinnikov on February 14, 2024. Imagine a drone smaller than a fishing boat taking out ships that cost tens of millions of dollars. But Ukrainian innovation went way beyond the basics. In December 2024, Magura V-5 drones armed with air-to-air missiles shot down 2 Russian Mi, 8 helicopters, and damaged a third. This was the first time in history a naval drone had taken out an aircraft, literally creating a new category of naval warfare. The pace of innovation in Ukraine's drone race is comparable to aviation during World War I. Today's machines are incomparably more advanced than those of 2022. This accelerated evolution has completely reshaped the nature of modern naval combat. Ukraine's strategy is brilliant in its simplicity. While Russia spends billions on a handful of large, vulnerable ships, Ukraine churns out hundreds of small, cheap, disposable drones that can operate in coordinated swarms. The result of this new approach has been devastating for Russia. In July 2024, Russia withdrew its last patrol ship from Crimea, and today there are no significant Russian naval operations in Sevastopol. According to the UK Ministry of Defense, the Black Sea Fleet can be considered functionally inactive. Think about the scale of that statement. Sevastopol, which for centuries was seen as one of the most strategic naval bases in the world, is now essentially abandoned by the Russian Navy. And this didn't happen because of massive bombardments or epic fleet battles. It happened because of small, remotely operated drones that cost a fraction of a traditional missile. The transformation is so dramatic that naval analysts are completely rethinking their theories on modern sea power. The age of massive surface ships as the ultimate symbols of naval supremacy may be ending, at least in contested waters. Back to the Nyaz Pozharsky leak, we need to understand exactly why this exposure is so devastating. A technical document for a strategic submarine is like a full operations manual for a nuclear power plant. It contains literally everything an enemy would need to know to neutralize the threat. Imagine someone handing you the complete architectural plans for your home, where the structural weak points are, how to shut off the security systems when it's most vulnerable, and where all the valuables are stored. Now multiply that analogy to an oceanic scale, and you'll have some idea of what's at stake. The Nyaz Pozharsky documents reportedly reveal details about critical maintenance procedures, emergency protocols, access points to vital systems, and even personal information about crew members that could be used for infiltration or blackmail operations. With this info, an adversary could develop specific tracking tactics, plan pinpoint interdiction operations, or even attempt sabotage missions. It doesn't mean the sub becomes useless overnight, but it certainly slashes its operational safety margin. But here's the key question. How do we know if these documents are real? In today's digital disinformation era, not everything that leaks is automatically true. Verifying authenticity has become a science in itself. Investigative journalists and intelligence analysts follow strict verification protocols, cross-checking with independent satellite imagery, confirming through multiple human sources, forensic analysis of digital file metadata, and comparing with publicly available information about the vessel. It's a complex process because some sections could be entirely authentic, others edited or altered, and some completely fabricated. It's like putting together a puzzle where some pieces are real, some fake, and you have to figure out which is which before you see the full picture. In strategic risk analysis, experts typically work with 3 simultaneous scenarios: full authenticity, which would require immediate countermeasures; partial authenticity, which demands deeper investigation to separate fact from fiction; and complete fabrication, which would require communication measures to discredit the leak. Reality probably lies somewhere between these 3. And that uncertainty alone is already a strategic problem for Russia. The consequences of a leak this big go far beyond Arctic waters. When one of a superpower's nuclear deterrence pillars is compromised, the entire global geopolitical balance shifts. NATO allies might gain fresh confidence to share more sensitive intelligence, knowing there's precedent for successful operations against supposedly untouchable Russian targets. Neutral countries might rethink their alignment, especially in Arctic disputes where trillions in resources are at stake. Economically, the implications are just as serious. Protecting strategic submarines and upgrading cyber defenses costs literally billions. If Russia decides to carry out a full overhaul, replacing crews, rewriting operational protocols, building new layers of digital security, it will mean diverting massive resources away from other military needs or civilian priorities. There's also the psychological factor. The image of technological invincibility is an extremely valuable tool of soft power. Once that image is tarnished, the effects spread far and wide. Naturally, Russia won't just sit still after such a leak. There are well-established paths to minimize the damage and claw back some lost advantage, but all of them are costly and time-consuming. First, there's a full operational overhaul, reviewing every internal protocol, rotating compromised crews, changing patrol routes, and modifying communication procedures. Basically, it's like renovating an entire house after burglars got a copy of the keys. Second, there's a hardening of digital security, isolating critical networks, implementing new encryption systems, auditing all access points, and making an example of whoever's responsible for the leak. This could take years and cost fortunes. Third, there's the option of active disinformation, releasing contradictory versions of the same documents, creating fake information to confuse outside analysts, and running media campaigns to cast doubt on the authenticity of the original leaks. It's an information war where the goal is to create so much confusion that no one can fully trust any source. But all these steps take time, a lot of time. And while these reforms are underway, the fleet might operate far more cautiously and less actively, creating a strategic window of opportunity for adversaries. Behind all this geopolitical complexity is a deeply human dimension that often gets overlooked. When crew identities and routines are exposed publicly, they're not just numbers on a military spreadsheet. They're real people with real families facing very real consequences. Exposed crew members become vulnerable to blackmail attempts, bribery, and even direct threats against their loved ones. Families may have to be relocated, children may have to change schools, and their everyday lives are permanently disrupted. It's the human cost of intelligence operations that rarely makes the headlines. There's also the psychological impact within naval communities themselves. Once the sense of security around classified information is broken, institutional trust is shaken. Officers start wondering if their own identities are safe, if their operations are being monitored, if they can trust their colleagues. That kind of psychological pressure can have long-term effects on the operational effectiveness of an entire organization. It's like a virus that spreads through broken trust and institutional paranoia. What we're seeing isn't just an isolated incident. It's the fundamental transformation of naval power in the 21st century. The age of the Leviathans of the seas is being challenged by the age of intelligence swarms. The pace of drone technology innovation is similar to the revolution in military aviation during World War I, when experimental prototypes in 1914 became devastatingly effective weapons by 1918. We're living through a similar acceleration now, but compressed into an even shorter time frame. The emerging lesson is clear. In modern naval contests, agility, disposability, and mass production can beat size, armor, and individual sophistication. When hundreds of $50,000 drones can neutralize a $500 million warship, the entire math of traditional military planning has to be recalculated. That doesn't mean nuclear submarines will suddenly become obsolete, but does mean their strategic role is changing fast. The future will likely belong to whoever can most effectively integrate large and small systems, manned and unmanned, visible and invisible. The Niaz Pozharsky episode is much more than just a document leak. It's a symbol of the complete transformation of modern naval power. We're watching the birth of a new era where information is power, where small actors can challenge giants, and where traditional invisibility is being replaced by forced transparency. Ukraine didn't just expose the secrets of a Russian submarine. It proved that in the digital age, no secret is truly safe, and that tactical innovation can outmatch traditional technological advantages. This changes everything from how countries plan naval strategies to how international alliances think about defense. The sea, which for millennia has been the domain of the big and powerful, is being democratized by technology. And that democratization is rewriting the rules of the global geopolitical game in ways we're only starting to grasp. If you were fascinated by this story of how small drones are changing the fate of superpowers, hit like so the algorithm knows you want more of this kind of content. Comment on which aspect interested you most: the technology of nuclear submarines, Ukraine's innovative drone tactics, or the global geopolitical implications of these transformations. And share this video with someone you think should understand how the real world works behind the sensational headlines. See you in the next video, where we'll dive even deeper into the secrets that are changing our world.